What if your survival depended on absolute silence, yet your faith required a call to prayer? Imagine the buzzing of suicide drones machines so advanced they can detect the thermal signature of a single cup of tea from 2 miles away. This is the reality for thousands of Muslim soldiers on the front lines of the Russia-Ukraine war. While global headlines focus on tanks and missiles, a quieter struggle is unfolding, one of faith, devotion, and resilience. As the sun begins to set over the scarred landscapes of Zaporizhzhia and Donbas, these men, covered in dust and mud from shelling, do not reach for weapons. Instead, they reach for a single date and a bottle of water. It is time for Iftar, the breaking of the fast during Ramadan. But this is no ordinary Ramadan. Here, tradition must adapt to survival. Standing together openly, making noise, or cooking a warm meal could reveal their position to enemy drones. Every act of faith becomes a calculated risk. Yet, the story of Islam in Ukraine is not new. Long before this war, Muslims were woven into the very soil of the nation. The Crimean Tatars, whose presence dates back centuries, shaped communities across Crimea, Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Odessa. Mosques like Rama and Kyiv have long served as centers of learning and community, hosting families and travelers during Ramadan. Generations grew up reciting prayers, sharing iftar meals, and celebrating Eid together, preserving their heritage even through displacement and political change. Now, these centuries-old traditions collide with the harsh reality of modern warfare. Soldiers adapt by using chemical heaters instead of open flames, breaking fasts with energy bars, dates, and bottled water. Prayers are whispered. GPS apps guide the Qibla in darkness. The centuries-old rhythm of Ramadan continues, but in a world where every sound can be deadly. On the civilian side, families in Kyiv, Mariupolia, and Kharkiv face equally daunting challenges. Some break their fast in basements or bomb shelters. Electricity may be scarce. Meals are often simple. Yet, the purpose of Ramadan remains the same: patience, reflection, and faith. Across the country, Muslims in both civilian life and the military cling to these sacred rituals, proving that belief can survive even under the most extreme conditions. So here's a question for you. If your life, your home, and your faith were all threatened, how would you preserve them? Could you maintain the essence of your culture and devotion when the world around you seems determined to erase it? The battlefield of eastern Ukraine is a place where every breath, every movement carries risk. For Muslim soldiers stationed along the front lines of Zaporizhzhia and Donbas, observing Ramadan has become a delicate act of survival. Standing openly to pray, cooking a warm meal, or gathering in groups could draw attention from drones, artillery, or enemy snipers. Yet, the call to faith is louder than the roar of war. In these harsh conditions, soldiers have adapted centuries-old rituals into what can only be described as tactical devotion. Traditional iftar feasts are replaced by chemical heaters that warm food without giving off a heat signature. Dates, bottled water, and compact energy bars become sacred sustenance. Prayers are whispered, and the Qibla is found using dim GPS apps. Even when standing shoulder to shoulder, Salah is performed in shifts, so that one man prays while another watches for danger. Central to this adaptation is the ancient Sufi tradition, which teaches that true faith exists in the heart rather than in walls or mosques. Soldiers quietly practice Silent Zikr, a form of remembrance of God performed in perfect stillness. Circles of men huddle together, appearing to sleep or rest, while their hearts synchronize in prayer. Every whispered Quranic verse, while the enemy's infrared sensors see soldiers in a trench. The soldiers themselves see something else, a collective heartbeat, a spiritual invisibility cloak, known as the Silent Zikr that no radar can detect. Meanwhile, civilians are facing their own test. In cities like Mariupolia, Kharkiv, and Kyiv, families break their fast in basements or damaged homes, often with limited resources. Yet, the rhythm of Ramadan persists. Children learn prayers from parents, neighbors share meals, and communities maintain traditions as best they can. In both the trenches and the streets, faith is a lifeline, a source of structure, hope, and psychological resilience. Even more striking is the shared humanity across battle lines. Soldiers from Chechnya, Tatarstan, and other Russian regions who share the same religion are observing the same sunset and offering the same prayers a few hundred meters away. While political orders pit them against one another, their devotion remains aligned in quiet unity. The juxtaposition of shared faith and divided allegiance underscores the complexity of war. It also highlights the unbroken continuity of Islamic traditions under extreme conditions. In this crucible of fire, hunger, and fear, the Muslim soldiers of Ukraine have demonstrated that devotion can be both adaptive and defiant. Their rituals, though modified, are acts of resistance, teaching that faith is not limited to sacred spaces or communal gatherings. Even amid the chaos of war, they preserve their identity, honor their heritage, and keep alive a centuries-old tradition that cannot be extinguished by bullets, drones, or fire. As the holy month of Ramadan comes to a close, a different kind of battle begins: the quiet, determined celebration of Eid al-Fitr. Across Ukraine, from Kyiv to Mariupolia, the traditions of this festival have adapted. Yet the meaning remains unchanged. Families gather in small apartments, basements, and safe spaces, offering a simple breakfast after morning prayers. Children receive sweets, elders share stories, and neighbors exchange food across cramped spaces. In these moments, joy is quiet but deeply profound, a celebration of resilience and survival. In Kyiv, the Ar-Rama Mosque continues to serve as a focal point, though its courtyards are smaller and its gatherings limited by safety concerns. Families sit shoulder to shoulder, whispering prayers, sharing dates, bread, and tea, just as their ancestors did. The essence of Eid, a blend of gratitude, community, and faith, persist even in the shadow of war. These gatherings become acts of defiance against displacement, a reclaiming of identity when the surrounding world feels intent on erasing it. On the front lines, soldiers perform Eid prayers in shifts, maintaining the same devotion under impossible circumstances. Camouflage uniforms, mud, and the faint smell of gunpowder surround them, yet their hearts remain focused. As one soldier bows in silent prayer, another keeps watch over the trench. Meals are modest: dates, energy bars, and the occasional ration, but shared with the same intention as a grand feast back home. Every whispered prayer, every small act of Iftar, sends a message: the spirit of faith cannot be destroyed, even when the world has turned to rubble. The story of these soldiers and civilians is intertwined. Across the battle lines, Muslims on both sides observe the same fast, pray in the same direction, and ask the same God for protection. Political boundaries, military orders, and the chaos of war cannot sever these centuries-old traditions. Faith, identity, and cultural memory continue to thrive through adaptation, determination, and shared devotion. Today, Ukraine's Muslim community embodies a remarkable synthesis of history and resilience, from the Crimean Tatar centuries-old presence to the adaptive rituals of soldiers and displaced civilians. Faith has persisted through invasion, exile, and conflict. The lessons of Ramadan and Eid in war zones are universal. Devotion survives when it is personal, communal, and flexible. Traditions endure when people refuse to let them vanish. If this story of courage, adaptation, and unwavering faith moved you, imagine how many other hidden communities around the world have preserved their traditions. Against all odds, hit that subscribe button and join us as we uncover more untold stories of resilience, devotion, and human spirit from every corner of history. Because in the end, the most dangerous weapon in a war of erasure isn't a missile or a tank, it's a culture that refuses to be forgotten.